Hi Sonia, welcome back.
Hello.
So we're doing a follow-up from your last 24-hour recall that we did.
Mhm.
I just wanted to let you know about your strengths and your areas of improvement based on your diet that you told me last time.
Okay.
I ran your food items through a program online. It gave me a lot of information about the nutrients and the different food groups that you were either where you reached your goal or you were under your goal. So I'm just going to break it down for you and just let you know about your areas.
Okay.
So for your daily calories, you're allowed to have 2,200 calories per day. You were over 409 calories.
Mhm.
That might have been maybe just because of the snacks you decided to take. You know, you went more for like the quick and easy snacks where you were grabbing a bag of hot Cheetos or like a snack mix, you know.
Mhm.
So that might have like raised your calorie intake.
Okay.
You did really good in reaching your goal of protein and your vitamin D.
Mhm.
You actually had, let's see, for your protein, your target was 6 ounces. You had 12.9 ounces.
Oh wow.
So you were well over
Mhm.
your total, and I think that's really well for you, and because you didn't have a problem with this area at all.
Mhm.
You also didn't have a problem with your vitamin D,
Mhm.
and we can see that over here. So for your vitamin D, your target was 15 micrograms, and you were well over it, and you had 26 micrograms.
Okay. Cool.
Usually if you're like well over your target, it'll say that like you're over, you know, but it said it was okay, so it's nothing that's gonna have a bad effect on your health or anything like that.
Okay. Good to know.
There are some areas of improvement that I would like you to look at. Those included your sodium intake, your vegetables, your fruits and your grains, as well as your cholesterol.
Okay.
Those all have either a negative effect on your health or they do have a positive effect, and it's better to have more of it just so it can help you with your health. For your grains, your target was 7 ounces. You had 4.5 ounces that day.
Okay.
You're a little bit lower than what we would like you to be at. For your target for your vegetables, you had 3 cups. We usually want you to have 3 cups, but you had 1.8 cups.
Ooh, cool.
So that's like half of the amount that you should have. So maybe if this is an area of interest for you to improve on, we can take a look at that because you were under. Also your fruits, you were pretty close. You were still under, but you were pretty close to your goal, which was 2 cups. You had 1.7. So I think that would be fine. Just try to maintain that that level. Your dairy intake, that day, because you only had your coffee with the creamer.
Oh yes.
And that was basically it besides the water that you had. So that only made up for 8.8 cups of your dairy, and you're supposed to have 3 cups.
Okay.
So it was pretty low for that. There's another section for your cholesterol. We can see right here. So you don't really have a target for your cholesterol. It's always good to have a lower level of your cholesterol because it just helps reduce your cardiovascular status. Like you don't want to increase the risk of maybe getting a cardiovascular disease or something like that, because that just leads to a heart attack or a stroke or something like that.
Okay.
Later on in life, like maybe right now you'll feel fine, but throughout the years and stuff, if you don't really pay attention to it, you might just increase your risk.
Makes sense.
So like I said, there was no daily target for that, but usually we want to have a limit to anything we have. The limit would be 300 milligrams, and you had 735 milligrams.
Oh wow.
So you were well over we decided on, well, with what the limit was. So that might also be another area of improvement that you might want to look at.
Yeah.
Just because it was really high, like twice as much, you know?
Yeah.
But overall, like your carbohydrates and your other nutrient groups, those were pretty good. You reached your target for your iron intake, and I also think that's really good because a lot of people are pretty deficient in their iron.
Mm-hmm.
So you did a good job at meeting that. Your protein, you also met that. We mentioned it before that you were well over your protein, and that's because of like the salmon and the shrimp that you had.
Yeah.
That provided the protein for you, because I remembered you had mentioned that you don't eat meat or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good replacement for your protein.
Okay.
As mentioned before, your sodium intake, you can see it here. I don't know if you're more of a visual person, but
Yeah.
we have this bar where it shows your limit, but you went, as you can see, well
Way
over your,
over.
yeah.
Okay, that's probably from like the Cheetos and like the snack mix that I probably had, right?
Mm-hmm. It's
Okay.
more of like the instant food that you had,
Mm-hmm.
because that has a lot of sodium. It might
Yeah.
not seem like it, but yeah,
Mhm.
reading the nutrition labels.
Yeah, it catches up to me.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Other than that, you were really well. You, like I said, vitamin D, vitamin C, you were good. Vitamin B12, you reached your targets for all of your other nutrients and vitamins. There were a lot of, you went over for your empty calories, and that goes back to the snacks that you decided on for your diet.
Yeah.
It also caused you to have like a higher amount of like saturated fat. There was added sugars in your diet as well, and it had said that you went a little bit over
Mm-hmm.
than what we wanted you to be at.
Okay.
So overall, we can see at the end it shows us the limit and then the amount eaten for those 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, sodium was 4,523, and your limit was 2,300 milligrams.
Ooh, yeah, that's like double.
Mhm.
Jeez. Okay.
Also, for your saturated fat, that was almost double as well. Your limit is 24 grams. You had 49 grams.
Nice.
That has a lot to do with, I remember you had mentioned your salmon.
Mm-hmm.
You had cooked it with butter, and a lot of the saturated fat is mainly in oils that are solid at room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you were to change that to an oil like vegetable oil, olive oil,
Okay.
sesame oil, anything that's not liquid at room temperature, solid at room temperature,
Okay.
that would be a better option for you, because you went way past over your saturated fat limit.
Okay.
So yeah, your strengths were protein, vitamin D. I just want you, after all of the information I provided to you for how much you reached for your targets and stuff like that for the food groups,
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to let me know some areas of improvement that you would like to work on, and I can maybe provide a little bit more information. We talked about your sodium intake, vegetable intake, your sorry, I forgot to mention your grain intake.
Okay.
That was actually, you're supposed to have 6 ounces per day. For your grain intake, you actually only had 4.01 ounces
Okay.
of total. So you were a little bit lower than the recommended.
Mm-hmm.
Usually half of your grains that you have for the day, it's 6 ounces, but half of that, so 3 ounces,
Okay.
has to be whole grains. and you did not have 3 ounces. You only had 0.6 ounces of whole grain.
Barely any.
Yeah. So that's something maybe you might want to look at as well. Besides the other areas. And yeah, we talked about your cholesterol being really high. So I just wanted to know what area you would like to improve on.
I think the grains would probably be the area that I need to focus on because of the lack thereof that I had. So maybe some recommendations for the grains.
Yeah, and maybe we can not only focus on the grains, but maybe more specifically on whole grain.
Yeah.
Because you were close. Well, you were kind of close to your 6 ounces per day that you were supposed to reach, but you weren't really close to the whole grain target, which was 3 ounces, but you only had the 0.6 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a good idea. We can start to focus more on just the grains section. I just want you to know the difference between whole grain and refined grains. There's a difference between those. The whole grains are usually it's like the name of it, it's the whole grain. It keeps all the nutrients that are naturally in the grain. Okay. And when it's refined, it's more, it goes through a process where like it leaves out parts of the actual grain itself. Okay. And it's processed, so not much of the fiber that is in the whole grain is kept, and other nutrients as well. It leaves during that process of refining. Okay. It's also mainly found in like processed foods, like maybe even in your cereal, in your oatmeal or something like that. Yeah. And this actually makes you hungry faster. So like you'll eat it, you'll be full for a little bit, but then you'll get hungry right away. Just because the whole nutrient section and the whole fiber section of the grain is not in your body anymore. Makes sense. So your body tends to break down refined grains a lot faster than whole grain. Okay. So that's why when you have whole grain, you remain full for a longer time, because it just takes, since there's more parts of the grain that needs to be broken down by your body. It takes longer, so it keeps you full for a little bit longer. There's also a benefit to this, because not only can we focus on the whole grain section, but maybe you know how I had mentioned that your cholesterol was pretty high? Yeah. Whole grains actually lowers your cholesterol level, so it helps bring it down a little bit. Even if it's not something that I recommend to have a lot of high cholesterol foods and then eat a lot of whole grains to even it out, but if that's a problem for you to keep your cholesterol level steady, then whole grains is also an option to kind of like bring it down a little bit more, so your body won't have to be going through that process of maintaining, balance everything out. Okay. And if it lowers your cholesterol, it also reduces the risk of a cardiovascular disease. And another good part of the lowering the cholesterol with like the whole grain intake would be that it reduces your risk of a heart attack or a stroke, and it increases your blood flow, because usually when you have high cholesterol, it just reduces your blood flow, and it creates a lot of pressure in your arteries, which can lead to high blood pressure and stuff like that. And it's also not good if you have high cholesterol and high sodium as well, because sodium can also lead you to have more
like heart problems and whatnot.
Because of the high blood pressure that can tend to rise when these things are out of balance, you know? Are there any questions?
Not that I can think of now.
How do you feel about like the whole grain situation? Like, do you think this is something that will benefit you if you were to actually try to incorporate foods? Like, do you have any questions for foods that might be whole grain?
Let's see. I think that it was very helpful learning about like how much I don't have in my body or that I intake. But let's see, a question that I would have, like for oatmeal, for example, is there a difference between like instant oatmeal and then like whole grain oats and like I make it by myself?
Yeah, so actually instant oatmeal it has a lot of stuff in it, like the added sugars.
Right.
And because I don't know if you've read a nutrition label, but usually it'll have a sugar section, and then right underneath it'll have like added sugars.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to not go with foods that have those added sugars, just because it just adds so much sugar to the intake that you have for the day.
Okay.
They're a lot more processed as well, and they're instant. They cook faster.
Yeah, it takes them like 2 minutes.
A lot faster. So maybe the whole grain or the whole like bran oatmeal, it'll take longer to cook because it's like the whole grain. It'll keep you full for a lot longer. It does take a little bit more time to prepare.
Yeah.
If you're on the go, you might want to do like overnight oats.
Oh, yeah, okay, I've heard about those, like seeing recipes and whatnot.
Like that would be a good idea to do the night before, maybe, if you have time. Before you go to sleep, you prepare some overnight oats, and then in the morning you just grab and go.
Yeah.
That would be a better option instead of the instant oatmeal. Because I feel like, that would be a better option.
Okay, and then I think something else that I could probably do to make up for like the lack of the grains and whole grains, like whole wheat bread and stuff like that, would that help out as well?
Yeah, of course. Like there's so many alternatives that you can do with anything you eat, even when you make pasta, when you have crackers, when you make a sandwich, even your cereal. There's so many options that you can switch between, and I don't know, have you had any, like, have you switched from like whole grain to, or like have you had any foods that are just like regular to whole grain? Like have you done that switch?
Usually when I'm back at home, like with my mom, she will buy like whole grain, I think it's like pasta noodles. And I realize that I do like them like a little bit better, and like overall I feel better after, so I think that's something that I could do here while I'm not with my parents.
Do you think it switches the taste of it?
Not really, but I do realize that I do feel fuller quicker. Like usually with like regular pasta noodles, I'll maybe go back like for seconds and maybe thirds. I don't know. But like with the whole grain or whole wheat one, I don't. I go to with just the one plate and I'm done. And I'm full for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that would work if you would just switch the little things, You don't have to switch your whole diet or anything like that. You can start off maybe by your noodles or something, instead of having like instant noodles.
Right.
You can always it's a better option to always just prepare your own food, and maybe instead of going for the regular pasta, maybe go for the whole grain,
Okay. Good.
Any other questions?
I don't think so, but I will let you know.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It was nice seeing you again.
Thank you for the information.